What's up, everyone? And welcome back to another episode of High Minded with McCarter, featuring my amazing co-host, SK.
Thank you. So great to be here.
We are back this week. I am recovering from the Rona.
We are in mask in the studio right now.
We are masked up. Just taking precautions. But we talked to Gabby Pavelko, my amazing friend and mentor. She is incredible. She helped start this company called Good People, and they basically help brands connect with consumers and kind of understand their niche in the industry better. She works with so many cool brands. We talked about the coolest things. My favorite was that infused chocolate brand in California that is now offering a white glove delivery service. We also got to sample a cannabis infused perfume that actually has THC in it, so you have to buy it at a dispensary in California.
It is green.
It's bright green and it smells beautiful. Yeah. I love it.
And also, it's a roll-on.
Yeah, roll-on. It's like a pine kind of scent.
Some pining in there.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. And it changes with whoever's wearing it, which was cool.
I think the biggest thing that I took away from this episode is that things are going to change massively in the future, but people like Gabby are laying the groundwork to keep things smaller and more value-driven. So,
yeah, what they're doing over there at Good People is amazing. And yeah, I hope everyone enjoys the episode. Please remember to like and subscribe and give us a good review. You can follow me personally on Instagram at McCarterGetsHigh.
Yeah, and I just want to really quickly shout out Betty White. Today, as we're recording, would have been her 100th birthday. So rest in peace. And what a beautiful person all around. So
yeah, she was such a pioneer for women everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Much love.
We're sending you love, Betty. This one's for you.
This one's for you, Betty.
And stay high. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of High Minded with McCarter, featuring SK, my amazing co-host.
Hello.
I'm super excited to be back with my friend Gabby. Pavelko is here. I'm super excited. Welcome.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
It's your first podcast. I can't believe it.
My first podcast. I feel like a newbie here, you guys. I'm like, what do I do?
Yes, we're like, just put on the headphones. You'll be fine. But yeah, do you mind introducing yourself? And then we can just talk about whatever.
Yeah. So I have been in the cannabis industry since 2017, and I started a company called Good People in March of 2020. We are cannabis consultants, and it's crazy. It blows my mind that it's already been 2 years.
How?
I had no idea what was going to happen over the past 2 years, but first and foremost, we're a community of people all over the world. Now we're 112, which is nuts.
Whoa. Wow.
All
That's
over the
huge.
US, Canada, Mexico, and
congratulations.
Cool.
You were so amazing.
Well, it was really kind of an idea that has been in my mind for a long time, just meeting so many people in cannabis and being like, how do I bring people together? Because a lot of people are on islands, working in this industry. They're hustling and they're doing their thing and they're working so hard, but they don't really have a support network. And my value that I've brought to the industry, I think, is really through my relationships and the trust and the network that I've been able to build. And so started telling people, hey, I'm starting this company. Do you want to join? And at first we were like, we're going to bring in 10 people, 20 people, 30 people. Now we're like 112. And there's a kind of almost a wait list of people waiting to get in because we can't bring them in fast enough. Because we really want it to be thoughtful. Like when people come in, we want to onboard them. A lot of people are new to the cannabis industry, so we wanted to be like a gateway where people can come into the industry.
Amazing.
But also a lot of people are experts all across the board. And so our goal is to work with clients that we're vision and mission aligned with and help them with anything they need, be their first phone call, no matter what they need. So
amazing. Oh, that is so cool. I I admire you so much. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
I admire you so much.
No,
I mean,
stop
what
it.
you're doing is amazing. So thank you.
Yeah, I feel like we totally align in so many ways. I'm all about just like relationships and connection, and I just want to bring people together, same as you, and just continue to educate and learn myself. Like, so I always bring people on the podcast that I personally want to learn from, and then just be able to spread that knowledge, you know, just out through the internet easier so that, you know, hundreds of people don't have to talk to you directly. They can hear this amazing conversation. But yeah, where do we even jump in? I want to hear all about your work, like how important it is, because I know you talk a lot about and work with like people who are very ethically and morally aligned and, you know, kind of all looking for the same thing and trying to make the cannabis industry like the best it can be and not like all these other industries we see around.
Yeah. And, you know, it's interesting because I think being in the cannabis industry for a few years, I've seen a lot of things and a lot of companies come and go. And, you know, one of the things that people say, like, what makes you different? Like, what really makes you different? And I think when potential clients talk to me, they say it's very refreshing because I'm not trying to sell them something. You know, I'm not trying to sell them a service or something that we do. I'm really trying to understand why they want to be in this industry and how, like, they're going to fit into it. And our first goal is to normalize this plant. Right?
Yes.
All of us just want this plant to be recognized as medicine, and we want to destigmatize that. And,
Woo!
you know, how do we do that together, right? Like,
Yes.
how do we
The $1 million question.
rise all tides? Yeah. And I mean, people ask me all the time, they're like, why are you doing what you're doing? And like, why aren't you charging for like this or that? And I'm like, because that's not how we create a sustainable industry. Like, you know, if we just think about these short-term kind of solutions, that's not the right way to think about it.
What are the values of your company?
So we have 6. Like, it's called good people. So our first value has to be people first, always. And I think that is a huge thing that drove us to start this company, which is in the cannabis industry, a lot of people come in and they take whatever job they can get. And sadly, a lot of times they're either overworked, underpaid, mistreated. I've heard horror stories about things that have happened, and it's really crazy because it seems pretty unique to this industry, like just how mass scale this has happened.
Exploitation is
and
everywhere.
so first and foremost, we really wanted to be a place where people felt like they could come and kind of feel safe and talk about like the stuff that has happened before, but also where we could fix some of these problems, right? Like, it's really hard to get into the industry. It's really hard to figure out your right place in it. And so we like to be a conduit for that. And so one way that we do that is we actually worked with a beverage company in California, and we were their sales team for the whole state, right? So Northern, Southern California, and they were like, hey, we love your salespeople. You have the best salespeople in the whole industry. Can we hire them? We just got a bunch of funding. And, you know, a lot of people are like, wait, what? Like, you should charge them a recruiting fee or something like that. And I'm like, no, because it's good for the industry and it's good for like them. It's good for the people, and they loved each other. Right. So why is it for me to be like, I'm going to charge you to work together?
Yeah. Why are you trying to put a price tag?
Like, and I feel like that's the long-term view that we have. Like, a lot of times we'll go in and take even executive roles at our clients for a temporary interim
So interesting.
capacity, and they'll make us co-founders, you know, because it's so early stage and we like contribute so much to bringing them, you know, introducing them to investors or launching their product in a very competitive market. And it's, you know, it's really challenging sometimes to find people you can trust. So that's really where it goes back to people first, always. The second value that we have is the power of us. And that kind of speaks to that too, which is like, we're all stronger when we're together. So how do we work together? We have this, you know, big idea of like, we're not competitors with anyone. Even people say, oh, I'm a competitor of yours. And I'm like, let's get on the phone and figure out how we can work together.
Yeah.
Because you're doing something different. We're doing something different. Like, doesn't mean that, you know, you're right, I'm wrong, or vice versa. But how do we figure out, like, how to sustain this, like, so that it's better for everyone?
Yeah.
You know?
Like
there's
you said,
lanes.
raise every boat. Like,
totally. You know? And so I will welcome a conversation with, like, literally anyone.
And now time for a quick commercial break. Everyone, please check out the Weed Maps app. They have trusted information where you can find deals, save money on cannabis, compare menus, prices, and products. You can also continue learning about cannabis, hemp products, and so much more.
Download the Weed Maps app today.
I just kind of want to talk about like some products that like keep us excited kind of about like the future of the industry and kind of what you're saying, because with this amazing THC perfume, cannabis perfume you gave me, I love it. It smells amazing. And
yeah.
I just love seeing what people are doing to elevate, because I feel like the more we elevate it, the more people are like, oh, look how beautiful that is. You know, this isn't some just like disgusting plant, whatever, that smells skunky.
It squashes the stigma.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because before I got into cannabis, I did product development for food. And it's very similar in a lot of ways. One of my first jobs was at Earthbound Organic.
Yeah, they're pretty big.
Yeah, I was everything but salad. So they would be like, hey, you know, we have a surplus of kale. We have the 18-day shelf life. Can you figure out what to do with it, basically?
Oh, my gosh.
So I would
That's
puree,
hilarious.
juice, like freeze. You know, we would have to figure out what to do with it. Actually, the CMO of Earthbound at the time is now in the cannabis industry, and I'll tell you more about what she's working on.
Everyone's making their way over slowly but surely.
It's so cool because, you know, back
That's
in the day
awesome.
when I got into cannabis, like talk about, you know, normalizing it even for other people. They're like, what are you doing? And you're selling drugs? Like, I'm like, no, I'm working in plant-based medicine, you know?
Literally.
And then now they're all calling me being like, hey, you've been in the industry for a while. Can you get me in? Or I'm joining. Can you help me? You know? And I'm like, yeah, of course. I'm so happy to see other professional people wanting and are interested in this as a CPG industry. You know, we have all thought that all along. Like, there's going to be so many amazing products coming to the cannabis industry. There already are, but they all need to still have a reason for being. So
Right.
I love this, the perfume that you guys were talking about. It's by a company called Drew Martin, and they're in California. You know, we worked with them to help them launch their botanical infused pre-rolls in California, but they have hand-painted edibles that they're delivering with like a
Epic.
white glove service in LA. Amazing.
That is through the roof, and I love it. Like,
yeah. And then
Another
this
level.
perfume,
Yeah.
I seriously like. I just use it all the time because it has that aromatherapy effect.
Yeah.
It has Jack Herrera, actually, I think is the strain that's in it. And then Heretic is, you know, a luxury perfume company. But talk about just like beautiful packaging, beautiful product. And I'm obsessed. You know,
I am too now.
a big fan and got you into the Sonder Space Crystals.
Oh
So
my gosh, yes.
Still one of my favorite products that's been developed of all time, because not only is it fun and it's nostalgic, but it has a medicinal benefit in the sublingual absorption,
Yes.
right?
So
as
it's cannabis pop rocks. I still have a couple left. I like keep them so sparingly because I'm like, I don't want to like run out.
Yeah, you've told me about those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
love that.
Gabby she's introduced me to all of the coolest cannabis companies, like run by women or, you know, people in the queer community, or people of color that are like just really pushing the boundary and like just, keeping us woke, really.
Yeah.
one of my favorite new brands that we work with, they're called Cohen. They're these little cannabis cordials.
Ooh.
They're amazing because so they actually just won the most innovative product at LMCC.
Oh, so cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I need to
So
sample these.
They're beautiful. The packaging is really beautiful. But what's so cool about what they're doing is like there's like calm and there's sleep, not sleep, but there's balance and play and create. They're coming with sleep ones soon. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but you know,
I really like that approach, like the effects. And 1906 does that too.
yes, and I love 1906 also. We don't have 1906 in California yet.
That is weird.
They're
They
in
wanted to go for like Illinois and
Yes.
weirder, not weirder, newer markets.
I think
Less
they're
saturated
really
markets.
Yeah.
I think they're really smart in that strategy because you know, a lot of times the consulting that I actually do with brands is I'm like, don't come to California. Seriously, right
you're
now.
competing against hundreds of thousands of brands.
California has so many brands, and all their packaging is on point, and it's so beautiful.
How would you ever stand out or make any money?
Well, so I think what's actually really interesting is that, in my opinion, brands who really understand being a brand and what that means are going to be successful in California. I think for a long time, people were just trying to like give stuff away. you know?
Yeah.
And that doesn't work anymore because you can give away a lot of stuff and it'll just sit on the shelf. And I think where we're moving in this kind of next year is like really establishing like consumer having loyalty to certain brands because they get consistency. And I think that's what, you know, companies like the ones I'm talking about, like these Cohen products, it's like every time you try one of these, if you're having an anxiety attack, you take Calm. And you know, in 10 minutes, you're going to be calm. Like, I have been in the midst of, like, one of those, like, just, like, you know, my heart's pounding really fast. And, like, she'll remind me, like, hey, take a Calm. And I take a Calm. And I'm just like, oh, my gosh. Like, it seriously works.
Amazing. It's amazing. Wait, so you just, like, it's like a little shot?
Yeah.
Almost?
So it's interesting because they're tiny. Like, they're a tiny little bit of alcohol, or not even alcohol. It's a tiny little bit of terpene-based formulation. And it's all cannabis. And so the taste is pretty mild, but you just like swish it around in your mouth. And so it sublingually absorbs as well. And I think this is very nerdy science, so stop me at any point. But when you smoke or when you vape or when you take something sublingually, it actually stays in Delta 9. THC, but if you take an edible, it actually converts into 11-hydroxy when it goes through your digestive system and your liver. And so that's not good, bad, or whatever, but it's for people who kind of want that high that they know, like that, you know, Delta 9 THC high. It's like you get that a lot easier through sublingual administration than through an edible. That's why people have bad edible trips.
Yeah,
yes.
The 11-hydroxy.
Okay, this is information I need to repeat.
Yes, and the Sonder ladies did a very creative educational video about this around the space crystals. You can see it on their Instagram. It's very beautiful, and it's like a robot, like from space.
Yes, their stuff is so cool.
They're the most creative.
Yeah, well, the space crystals they're the cannabis pop rocks.
The pop rocks,
those are so cool. I honestly think that like the sublingual is like the way to go with like tinctures and the things that like dissolve, like the strips and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, I love Kinslips.
Yes. And because I feel like Escape Artists and some other brands were trying to do the sublingual strips, but it hasn't. Nothing in the Colorado market has really taken off.
You know, I think that it goes back to really like investing the time to make the product, you know, one, do some testing with consumers before you launch. I can't tell you how many times people come to me and are like, try this. And I'm like, I wish you had come to me before you like got the packaging and all that stuff because it's like I would change a few things, right? But not even
And then that's awkward.
Yeah, but not even just me, like we tested amongst our 112, right? Like we'll send everyone and good people to try and we'll get you feedback from all these experts in the industry.
That's a great sample size.
Yeah. And I think what it comes down to is like, you know, companies and brands like Kinslips and these like really quality products that you go to over and over and again, they've invested the time in the research. Like they've tested the products with consumers. They've done shelf life testing. You know, they've really made sure that like they understand like everything that could go wrong with that product. Like pop rocks, humidity, and heat are not their friend.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So if you've ever left
humidity makes sense.
in your car in the summer or something, it's so gross. So you have to keep them, you know, like what I love about
a cool, dry, dark place.
So what's really interesting is in Colorado, I remember learning this like here and then Washington State and even Oregon, like a lot of you guys like refrigerate your concentrates. Like in California, like that's not really a thing yet. And it's so interesting because there's like tons of connoisseurs like in different markets and like how they even treat and interact with the cannabis is different. And this is the stuff that I like observe like when I'm working with like a new brand or something. But you know, we'll have people who say to us like in California, like I really want to put this in like a refrigerator. And we're like, there's not a ton of refrigerator space. Like beverages are taking up a lot of refrigerator space right now in California cannabis, which I love. I love cannabis beverages.
Yeah.
Really big fan of, have you guys tried Wonder yet?
No, I've tried the CANN. Like,
yes. So love the low dose, Mad Lily and S shots. So good. I'm going to get you guys.
I have so many things I need to try.
They're so good. But this whole idea of like, instead of having, alcohol or even like the hard seltzers or even just sparkling water that's like blowing up right now or kombucha, it's like, is there a way? Wine. Jamie Evans just launched a new cannabis rosé, which
Wait, I saw this. I saw some influencers in California posting about it, and I was like, I need to try that.
Yes, and Warren Bobrow just launched the Apple, his Apple product, Klaus, I think it's called. I just tried it for the first time. Delicious. Like, it's crazy to me how you can get cannabis beverages to taste so good, but also I would so much rather drink that now than anything.
Yes.
Yeah, all day, every day, especially when they're low dose. Like, Can, Wonder, Mad Lily, a lot of them are really targeting kind of those like newer users.
Yeah.
And I love just being able to have like, multiple of them, similar to sublingual. They're absorbing in your mouth as you're drinking it. So
that's what I was going to ask. Is it all through sublingual? Is it through the liver then too?
Well, so they use nano emulsification, which is a very complicated process to explain to like consumers. So I don't think that people have done a really great job necessarily in explaining it. Vertosa in California is like one of the larger people that patented this process, but you're basically taking like the cannabis molecule and you're making it fit inside the water molecule. So it's actually, it's more bioavailable, you're getting more cannabis into your bloodstream eventually, and so it's a very different kind of administration. I think the issue with all of this kind of science-y stuff, right, is that people get kind of bored hearing about it. So it's like, how do you make this in a consumer digestible, like friendly way? And I don't know if anyone's done a really good job. And then, there's some edible companies in California that advertise as being nano, but if someone takes something that says it's nano and then it doesn't hit them for 2 hours, then they lose faith in nano altogether. So it's kind of like live resin or, some of these terms where like no one has really clearly defined exactly what it is, although there are people now testing products and apparently there's a way you can tell if something is actually live resin or if it's just highly terpenated distillate. Oh. And you can see in lab testing, the difference and stuff. And so I love this kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's so cool. I think all like testing for everything should be, readily available to all consumers.
And I think consumers will care about this in the years to come. They're going to ask, how was this product cultivated?
Yeah.
Not just indoor, outdoor, greenhouse, whatever, but it's like, I just learned about deep water cultivation today where it's kind of like solventless where, you don't actually use any soil or like media. And like there's also the what is it called, the hydroponic with the fish, and there's so many ways that people are cultivating cannabis. And I think Colorado was actually one of the first people to really focus on like regenerative practices. And people talking about, it's organic. I said I used to work at Earthbound, like from the consumer side. They were the first people to really bring organic to farming. And now imagine like it's like that's this huge industry, but what's crazy to me is cannabis already has less pesticides just in terms of the testing that we do than the food that we eat. It is tested more.
Oh my gosh.
Than the food that we eat, because when you think about like concentrating the cannabis and putting it in like a vape cartridge, it still has to test in a lower pesticide to be able to be sold in a dispensary. And so I'm a huge advocate for making sure when you buy something, like you're buying it at a licensed dispensary because it's gone through that testing and really understand kind of like what you're getting. I think there's just so much room for consumer understanding. When VapeGate was happening or whatever you want to call it, Vape-mageddon, I was actually working at Jupiter Research, which makes C-Cell hardware. And, from the beginning, they have always made like really high quality hardware, but you don't have to cut the oil that you put into their cartridges with propylene glycol or vegetable glycerin. And so many people, vape these products and they don't really know what's in it. And so I always I look at a package and I'm like, I don't understand what some of this stuff means. And you're not required to put a lot of that stuff on the package. And so for me, it's mostly, actually talking to the manufacturer, the producer, being like, how is this cultivated? How is this manufactured? Solventless, right? Like wherever possible. And what does that actually mean? Like, isn't water a solvent?
So true.
A great point. Yeah.
I'm just like, but I would rather it be water than other things.
Right. That's so true. Well, that kind of reminded me on a past episode we were talking about with all the fires and stuff. There was so much ash falling that it hurt.
Heavy metals.
And yeah, it brought a lot of heavy metals into cannabis and wine. Actually, I know a lot of like wineries had to like totally just throw away their harvest because they're like, we can't do anything with this.
Yeah.
But SK brought up an amazing point that like, hold on, but we're breathing in that air.
Yeah.
And then you're saying that like
we can't smoke it.
We can't smoke it, but we're like, who's regulating that we're breathing it in? No one. Like,
I mean, this year, yeah, I hear you. Smoke taint
this
is
fire
real.
just happened a week ago here, and
we're coming off
still
of
breathing it.
the Marshall fires in the Boulder County area, which was 2 miles away from my house
gosh,
here in Boulder. But yeah, you like living in California mostly. Obviously, California sees so many forest wildfires, whatever they're called technically in that area.
It's really sad. I think that with everything, we need to have a more like proactive approach to this because what seems to happen in California is like every year it's like, oh, it's fire season again, you know, like we have to deal with these like consequences, but it's like what happens in between fire seasons? You know, like are people actually able to do anything to kind of like prepare themselves? You know, a lot of cannabis farmers like lose their entire crop and like don't have insurance, right? Because
oh my God.
we don't have access to that.
Sure,
yeah. And I mean, even, you know, like you were saying, like the wineries and all that stuff, it's so devastating because it's our vegetables, it's like our food, and then it's the air that we breathe. I remember there were a few days in 2020 when it already felt like the world was ending where the sun didn't come out. Like it was, I woke up and I'm like, where am I? What time is it? And people
it's the start of the apocalypse.
took pictures because it looked like it was like the sepia, like those like old time photos. And it's just like, what are we doing to our planet? You know? And I think that all of this regenerative, you know, stuff that we're talking about, like sustainable packaging, it's like, how do we actually reverse some of the things we're doing, not speed it up, you know, because it devastates me. Like there shouldn't be a fire season every year. There shouldn't be, you know, these random fires that are so destructive, not only to our environment, but like to people's homes and people's lives. I mean, yeah. And what can we do to help it not happen every year, you know? And I think the cannabis industry is so supportive of each other. Like we help each other out. A lot of times it will be like, you know, I lost my entire crop. You know, I've heard the wine industry does this as well. And so there's a lot of, you know, support and help for each other. And that's the things that I love to see. But it's always like, does this have to happen?
Yeah.
You know, is there a way to stop this?
Yeah.
Are there practices within the industry that are kind of what you would like to see in the future that are already happening? And what practices would you want to see just go away in growing and
great question.
Packaging?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general with like how I live my life, I try to be like as natural as possible. And, you know, I think about how that's like kind of translated to the cannabis industry. There's just so many amazing growers like Moon Made Farms. Have you guys ever met Tina?
No.
Oh, she's a queen and you have to meet her. But she, you know,
we'll get her on the pod.
We would love that.
Oh, yes, you need her.
Please.
She, you know, is really focused on outdoor cultivation. She lives on her land.
That's amazing.
You know, she talks to the plants, like she plays music for them. She like really believes in it. And her every year, like they're high potent, you know, it's like with the practices that she has, using as many organic practices and, you know, personally tending to every plant, you know, not everybody can do that. And like, that's really hard to scale, but it's like also just figuring out, you know, how do you put back into the soil what you're taking from it, right? And so I don't think a lot of people think about that, you know, and you can do it in a lot of ways. Like instead of using pesticides, you use cover crops. You know, there's Sonoma Hills Farm. It was the first certified organic farm in the country. It just happened like a few months ago. And I love this because
I missed that press release.
Yeah, like that sounds like
and you have to go do a tour. Like you have to. But
we're going back to Cali.
Yes. So
I'm going back to Cali.
Talk about like normalization. So what they're doing and how they were able to do it is they have a vegetable garden, right? And so they partner with chefs like Tyler Florence, and they get their vegetables on the menus at his restaurants. And so when someone's eating at the restaurant, they're like, Sonoma Hills Farm, what's that? And then they look it up and it's like, it's a cannabis farm. It's in like
That's so cool.
Petaluma, area. And so, which is also like a new AVA for wine, I guess. But it's just so fascinating because there's so many things that you can do that wine has actually done really well, and other crop vegetables have done really well that you can, like, this isn't new, right? Like we're
not like reinventing the wheel here.
Centuries of research about like how to do things right. What worries me the most is, when these big kind of corporate giants come in, and they really start to till the ground and you're digging up all the nutrients and everything like that. It happens in farming. It happens in farming of flowers and farming of plants and vegetables and all that sort of stuff. But it's like, how do we stop that from happening in cannabis? And how do we actually teach those industries how to do something better?
Yeah.
I think kind of...
But doesn't that mean there has to be like a cap on industry then? And then it's like, are we still a free market?
So I don't know about the cap. I think that it's good to have competition.
Because that's like capital. When I think of like big scale, I'm just like capitalism.
I think that there's a way to regulate, and a lot of times we self-regulate, to be honest. With a lot of the things that we're doing, like the packaging is already crazy, how many things you have to put on it, but you don't have to put a lot of the things that like food has to put on it, right? Like, and it depends state by state and market by market. And it just kind of blows my mind that not everywhere requires like nutrition facts or an ingredient label.
Seriously.
And so
I do love going to different states and seeing like, what are they doing here? Where is this?
Yes.
Where is that?
And like, it's like, why aren't the terpenes listed, but this is listed? Like,
okay, so terpenes are like my favorite thing to educate people on.
Yes. We keep this gold leaf medical reference card that has like
all the terpenes.
Just for like quick, I'm sure you know them by like heart, but
I think I have that actually.
I'm obsessed. I pull it out all the time. This is the one that I always go to, the terpene.
Well, what I think is crazy is that, I'm explaining to my friends who work in wine or who work in food, like what terpenes are. And I'm like,
it's like, shouldn't they already know about these?
Well, but I think in the future, like we will actually talk about, our food and maybe even our wine, like at this level, like it doesn't happen yet. And I think that's what cannabis can have like the legacy for is like, if we can figure out how to do farming better, how to do cultivation better, how to do manufacturing better, right? Like not using so many chemicals and,
and
really...
so much waste. And now time for a quick commercial break. On the Weed Maps app, those who are 21 and up can order online for delivery or in-store pickup from local retailers. You can also browse menus and look for deals in your areas to save on cannabis. And you can get helpful notifications about price drops, new product launches, etc. Everyone, please check out the Weed Maps app. You can order it on your app store for iPhone and Android. And stay high. So have you heard of the Trichome Institute?
I think so.
With Max,
interpening?
Yeah, interpening.
Interpening.
He's like, so Max Montrose is a guy in Colorado who that's his company. So I bought his book, and he has like a whole institute, like classes you can take. But he basically says that you should be classifying cannabis as like broadleaf marijuana or narrowleaf marijuana, like the whole sativa indica thing. Obviously, we know it's very flawed, but like he's just like, it should totally be taken out of people's word. Like,
the vernacular.
There we go, the vernacular, yeah.
I know, I find that so many times when you go into a dispensary and you overhear someone like saying, oh, I really like sativas. I actually heard a barista say this, like the most PC way ever, and I love this, I'm totally going to use this. She goes, what does that mean for you? And I'm like, I love that. I'm totally going to use that because like she's not going to be like, oh, so it's like cerebral or it's like energetic. Like she's like, what does that mean for you? This is at a coffee shop.
Yeah,
like,
I love
that's
that.
so cool.
Because someone was like, oh, I want like my coffee, like whatever. And she's like,
really robust.
Yeah. What does that mean for you?
Yes.
Like, I love that.
Yeah, because you don't know if they're like, oh, I like it to energize me and be really uplifting. Because then we're thinking about, okay, that's probably, what terpene is this? Like, this, which is most like citrus, like limonene.
Yeah.
And other, that's what I'm thinking of.
I find that, it's really difficult to have certainty and say, like, limonene, no matter what brand or what product, is going to always do this for me because, you know,
True.
it could be botanically produced. It could be like cannabis derived. Like,
Yeah.
it's hard to know, and you don't have to put any of that on the package, of course.
Yeah.
Right. So like, you're like, every time I go to find something, I want that kind of understanding of like what's going to happen to me, and like we're definitely not there yet.
So true.
But there are a lot of products that have that consistency every time, and you know, I love that because I'm like, if I want to feel happy, if I want to feel sleepy, right? Like, I don't want to take that sleep gummy and have it like racing my heart and be up all night. That's the last thing you want.
Oh
right?
my gosh, yeah.
But it's not foolproof. Like, what works for me might not work for you.
Yep.
Might not work for you. And I think that's where that question really makes a lot of sense. It's like, what does that actually mean for you? I totally agree. Like, you know, people ask me like, are you more of a sativa person or an indica person? And I'm like, everything's a hybrid.
Yes, I literally, oh my gosh, are we the same person? I literally say, I'm like, first of all, everything's a hybrid.
Everything's a hybrid.
It can be sativa leaning or indica leaning if you prefer.
It's like, yeah, no.
Yeah,
that vernacular's dead. It's time for it to be over.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I want to help people, like, you know, get there. And because I also don't want to make people feel like ignorant or be like,
No.
oh, well, I don't know what that means, so I don't even want to get into cannabis. Like, I thought I knew the sativa thing, and like now I'm just, you know.
Well, and
What does that
there's
mean for you? I love
Yeah,
that.
there's like a right way, I think, to do it. And like, I haven't really seen many people be like shamed, I would say.
Yeah.
Like, and that's like the last thing I would ever do to anyone, like intentionally. But it is really sciencey. Like, you kind of have to be like a chemist to like really understand cannabis. And,
Oh,
like,
yeah. With all the cannabinoids,
well,
too.
and people are like, okay, so there's cannabinoids and there's terpenes and there's like flavonoids and there's like all these words. And it's like, when was the last time you used these words? Like,
Yeah.
Right. It's like your endocannabinoid system is such a new idea for so many people.
Yeah.
But it's also really interesting because there's a ton of like medical research that exists, like a lot of it coming out of Israel, and most of the world like pretends like it doesn't exist. And it's like, there's some really compelling evidence around like, you know, the endocannabinoid system and what it does, and really like how you can treat like certain diseases with certain strains. And there's amazing work like happening. It's just, unfortunately, you know, in the US, until we're able to actually, like, it's this past year, you know, a few more scientists got licenses to study and stuff, but it's just like, we need to study this at a mass scale to really be understanding like what we're consuming. And
I think cannabis and hemp can totally help us with the COVID happening. Like, did you see the study that came out that CBD basically like stops the virus from spreading? Basically, like, wow. And I'm like, why isn't this being talked about more? Like,
you know, I think really it's because there's just so many lobbyists for like big alcohol,
literally,
big tobacco,
and they have
pharma,
so much money behind them.
So much money behind them. But, you know, there's a lot of controversy around, you know, like Pfizer coming into the cannabis industry and, you know, stuff like that, because it's like, is it good when these like big companies come in?
It makes me worried.
It makes me really worried because, you know, I don't want to be smoking synthetic cannabis in the future. Like, and, you know, a lot of times these companies come in and say that's the only way you can scale. People today are scaling without making synthetic product. Like, back in the day, hemp was grown everywhere, you know, like before the war on drugs, like before, you know, all of the madness. It's like
before
all
Christopher
soybean fields were hemp.
And you know what?
Before Columbus brought his ass here.
People were healthier. Like, and it's like, is that actual causation? I don't know. But like, growing up around the plant, like being exposed to the plant at a young age, like kids who are lucky enough to like have parents who like cultivate even home grows and stuff like that, like they have such a healthier relationship, like with the other people in their life, with creativity, with anger. Like, you know, it's kind of, I always say to people, I'm like, you know, you could either go to therapy or you could like kind of have the plant be your therapy. Yeah. Because it really gives you kind of that deeper look at a lot of things that you wouldn't see otherwise. Or
it gives you a new perspective, I totally think. And same with mushrooms as
Yes.
well.
Yes.
If we can talk about because I think cannabis and mycelium really need to work together to save the planet, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many plant-based medicines that, you know, we're just starting to talk about. You know, I think psilocybin has gotten a lot of attention over, the past couple of years is getting a ton of funding. A lot of the same people who are interested in cannabis are interested in psilocybin because, there was this amazing study that just came out about how psilocybin can really affect depression and especially, grief, like ketamine as well. Like a lot of people are doing, doctor assisted ketamine trips for grief, which is really amazing. And I think, about all of it is plant-based medicine. Like it's,
Same.
and should be kind of like used together. And there's, other plant-based medicines that are not going to get you high in any way. And you can take all of these in a microdosing fashion, So I take a microdose of psilocybin. It's been an interesting journey because when I started, there's pretty much two schools of thought that I've heard of. I don't know if you guys prescribe to either one, or subscribe, I guess. So you take it 5 days on, 2 days off.
Is this the dosing? We were literally just talking about SK did a bunch of research.
Article, about this, and there's a lot of different protocols, the Fadiman protocol, the Stamets protocol.
Yes.
I do 4 days on, 3 days off. 5 days on, 2 days off just sounds more fun.
Well, so I started doing 5 days on, 2 days off, and the product that I take it's called Microgen, and it has like ashwagandha and lion's mane and all this stuff, and it really helps intensify my focus. And it's really funny because everyone thinks I'm such a great multitasker, and I say I think I have ADD. I've never been diagnosed, but I use it to my advantage. And when I take psilocybin in a microdosing, like in the morning before I'm going to start my workday, I can do like 3 or 4 things at one time.
Whoa.
Instead of just 2 things. And then I'm just also so much more creative. And I just feel like I can accomplish everything I need to by like noon.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Wow.
But so I started doing 5 days on.
Where do you get the I need these?
I'll hook you up. So I started doing 5 days on, 2 days off, and then I started doing the every 72 hours, which is another protocol.
Okay, yeah.
And then I was talking to an amazing doctor who actually does cannabis and also ketamine therapy, and she's based in Florida. And she said, switch it up. Like 1 week, do 5 days on, 2 days off. Like the next week, try 72 hours. And then I got to a place where like I'm so responsive like to it. I can just know when I have to take the next one. So
Whoa.
I'm not even like on a regular schedule anymore.
Intuitive dosing.
Intuitive dosing.
Yeah, nice.
Wait, this is incredible. I need to be on this level. That's insane.
Well, and it's gotten to the point
I
where
love this.
like, I work
I want everyone to do this.
Well, I work really closely with like the producers. I'm that type of person. I'm like, if I'm going to try something, I want to talk to the person who makes it, right? And I'm like, from a nerdy perspective for sure, but I'm like, what is in this? At what level? Like, because I want to understand. And so, I called the producer of my psilocybin and I said, hey, this last batch, like, I didn't feel as energized. And, he was like, oh, that's because I took the lion's mane out of that one, and he's like,
Wow.
you felt that. Okay, cool. Like, I'm going to send you a new batch, like, test this one and see what you think, because it's really that sensitive when you actually use it intentionally. Like, I think the moral of all of the plant-based medicine is use it intentionally, right? So like you said, even if I'm like, I want to have fun tonight, it's also probably like I want to release and relax my like social anxiety, like when I go out and have fun, or I want to like have like more of like a giggly time, like because I'm trying not to be so serious all the time because I'm trying to be more like Betty White.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, but it like helps us achieve these like goals or aspirations in our life.
Yeah, and this whole kind of perception of like the stoner or these people who are really lazy. I'm like, I don't know anyone like that. Everyone
Seriously.
I know, it's like they're doing 19 side hustles and are killing it, and still have kids and have like, all this stuff going on. And it's like, you guys are the lazy ones. Like, come join us. Like, see if you can hang and if you can make it, because like, I swear every single day I have a conversation with someone who works in this industry and they're like, this is the hardest thing I have ever done, and I love it so much. Like, I'm here for it.
Because there's no handbook. There's no book that says this is the way you have to do it. We're all just like figuring it out day by day.
Yeah, and I think that it's really hard to know who to trust. And
so true.
That comes back to big circle back to our values. Like my favorite value right now of Good People is delivering hope. because I
wow.
think
That's so inspirational.
But that's actually like what we do for our clients because, like you said, it's constantly putting out fires. Like people will call us and say, my manufacturer like went out of business, or my distributor said I have to pick up all my product in a week. Like, what do I do? And it's like, hold please. We'll help you with that. You know,
Yes.
and like, it's not like, okay, like we're going to take 90 hours to like research this and get back to you. It's like, I'm going to call up, you know, the people within my network who I trust and I know will help. And I think I felt like this past year at the conferences, there were some younger people who were like new to the industry, and they said to me, like, if you could give us like one piece of advice, like what would it be? And I was like, don't trust anyone, not even me. And they were like, what? I'm like,
I love that.
because I think that's the biggest lesson is.
Yeah. And if people are telling you to trust them, it's like, that's even a bigger red flag.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
oh,
and I'm
trust
like-
me. Like, no.
Yeah, like saying something is one thing, actions are something else.
Yes.
Right? Like,
Definitely.
so you hear all the time people are like, oh, you know, we made all this money. And I'm like, show me. Like, do you have some financial reports? Like, I want to see that because
Yeah.
I think that
Let's
there's
see that gross and net profit.
Exactly. There's this perception that, you know, these cannabis companies are just taking it to the bank. And I'm like, when you really look under the tent, there's, you know, 4 founders that are killing it, and it feels like it's an 800-person company, and they're achieving as much as, you know, a pharma company that has 800 employees, but they're doing it because they believe in what we're doing and they care about it and they care about the patients.
Yeah.
And like that's what gives you the energy. And you know, they're probably microdosing so they can do 4 things at once.
Yes.
Totally.
But like that's what you need to do. Like it's crazy to succeed in these industries, and it's not for the faint of heart. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I love it. I love that like every day is a new challenge, and just it's like it's never the same. And I can just consume and microdose like while doing my work and not be concerned about what's going to happen.
Crazy about that though. Like I was just telling you know, you guys earlier, like I had to take a drug test, and I think that's like so interesting is I haven't personally had to take a drug test like the whole time I've been in the cannabis industry, but you know, what's weird is that there's still a lot of like federal programs like workers comp. So like if you get hurt at work and you work for a cannabis company and you go to the hospital, the first thing they're going to ask you is like, did you get hurt at work? And you're like, yes. They have to give you a drug test. And so it's
wait, I did not know that.
yeah, and it's like it's really confusing for that employee. They're like, so like, do I say I got hurt at work? Like, I'm going to fail this drug test. Like, what's going to happen to me?
Yeah.
And so like, these are the things that you learn, which are like,
Oh
that's
my gosh.
crazy that like in this industry, when this is like your medicine, that you know, you can't even get drug tested because you're going to get in trouble maybe.
Yeah.
Like, so that, I mean, is crazy.
Well, and when there's like state issued medical cards too.
Totally.
Like it's like, hold on, I have a card that says this is medical use, and now you're saying it's a drug that I wasn't supposed to be used. Like it makes no sense.
It's so confusing. And also just like the disagreement between like the federal and the states. Like
we were going to ask you what do you think's going to happen?
What do you think the future of the industry looks like?
you know, it's really interesting talking to so many people all over the world like every day. And it could happen in the US in like 5 months or 5 years, you know? And I think that all of us are hoping that it happens sooner, but I also don't think we want to rush it because we want to make sure it's done right.
Yeah.
And right now, every single state is so different in terms of its regulations and
So different.
so different. And I mean the products. And so if we were to go federally legal like tomorrow, it's not like all of a sudden all of our problems would be fixed, right? Like there's a lot of steps to get there, like safe banking, like talking about doing cash pickups, you know, it's funny and it's like kind of laughable.
But it's like that's a serious
It's so dangerous.
issue. Yeah.
So dangerous.
Anyone could just try to rob you at gunpoint at like any time, any place.
I mean, that alone is a huge barrier to this ever being, you know, federally legal. And obviously, like the bill has been, you know, passed back and forth, and it's like, okay, it's finally going to happen, and then, you know, we're still waiting, right? So
It got taken out or something.
yeah, I think that, you know, even if federal legalization was to happen today, it's like we have to figure out things like interstate commerce.
Yeah.
That's what. Yeah.
And make sure that we're protecting, you know, some of these like smaller, craft companies, and not by like eliminating competition and stuff like that. There is room for both. We've done this in other industries, beer, like it's like there's these master like huge brewing houses, and then there's craft brewing, and I think it always comes back around, so like even if today it's like big pharma comes in and they do big cannabis, right? It's like there's always going to be a place for that craft grower, and consumers are going to demand it, so I wouldn't be worried. I wouldn't sell out, just to kind of survive. My favorite thing that I say to all my clients right now, I'm like, surviving is winning. Surviving is winning right now. Like if you can survive, you are going to make a difference in this world. And that's all that matters.
Yeah. Oh, so true. Well, these are just the little tiny issues we want to solve in our world today.
Just a few tiny things.
Really quickly.
Yeah, I'm like, I want to go forever, but we should probably wrap up soon.
Yeah, just really quickly, what are the other 3 values of your company? Just so we can kind of, smush it
I knew you were going to ask me. So equity now. So, something that's been really important to me is the balance of like female and male. And so I think, when you define equity, obviously like the first thing that comes to mind is racial equity. And there's so much room for improvement in that in the cannabis industry. I mean, the war on drugs was a racial war. Like, let's, put it out there. I think that there is so much that I can learn from people who have been in the industry, who have served time in prison, for cannabis possession, are still serving time in prison for cannabis possession. This is insane. So I definitely want to be a conduit to help, racial minorities, BIPOC founders. But, on the female front, what's really interesting is that, cannabis is a woman,
Yes.
Right? Mary Jane. But also a lot of the original cultivators were women and are women. And I think that, as more and more kind of big business investing comes in, it becomes less so. And how do we stop that from happening? How do we keep it equitable? And so a big vision of Good People is that it's always at least 50% women.
Amazing.
And so, in everything that we do, in the clients we work with, in, what we're able to achieve, like that's really, really important to us. And then delivering hope, equity now. There is one that is creating change.
Ooh.
So creating change is about destigmatizing cannabis, basically, which is, the most important thing out of all of this. Like so many people are in the industry for money, unfortunately, and you can tell, like the
Chads.
Totally. And, it's not even just like a male thing. Like, let's put it out there, right? There's a lot of people who see opportunity and they come into the industry and they're not going to be in it for the long term because you have to work really, really hard. It's not just like you're going to, unless you're really lucky, you're going to make, a few million overnight, or you're breaking some laws, so. There's that. Okay. So value. And so what we like to say about this is we value the plant.
Yes.
Because we not only see its benefits for, actual like consumption for, these medical reasons and stuff like that, but actually being able to heal our planet. And I think that's where I really want to spend a lot of time and attention this year is, in getting retribution for a lot of the cannabis criminals, right? So there's like that whole social like element, but also the environment. Like, a lot of the stuff that we were talking about, hemp is like a really sustainable building material.
Yes, hempcrete. We're trying to get someone on to talk about like hempcrete and the powers of hemp. Yeah. But I also heard recently that like industrial hemp is a great like crop rotator because it gives like nitrogen back into the soil, I think.
Yes. Like this is the type of stuff that like we need to be studying and like implementing and then teaching, other industries. But
yeah, like why aren't the soy and corn farmers
in the clothing industry like
subsidies?
Yeah,
government subsidies. That's why.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, and it's just like so broken. It's like how can we heal the world? Like this plant and
we have to change our systems too. It's
totally,
like,
but we can, and other countries are doing it. Portugal decriminalized like all drugs, like
in Oregon too. Thank you, Oregon.
Yeah. And I mean, Colorado is really progressive, with a lot of things here as well. California is so broken.
One last
truly. I just
one last question I have too is like, how do you see the legacy market, still having an effect or impact on the the legal market in California.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. Like, I talk about this with people all the time too, right? So it's like you're not really giving people a path to becoming legal. It's like saying to someone, hey, you know, like, we arrested your whole family, you know, like 10 years ago, but like, come out into the light now, you're safe, like, trust us.
Yeah.
You know, and so there's like some PTSD, I think, like, from that element, but also the taxation. And like, we just had a recent increase, you know, in like the taxes and stuff. And it's just like, if I can sell this like in the legacy market, you know, and I don't have to like be subject to all these taxes and everything, like, why would I get into that market?
Yeah.
Having a path to really making it equitable and fair for people, and giving them not just the words, but actually the actions. Like, we will protect you.
Yeah.
We will make sure that, you know, your craft farm is not going to, you know, get totally taken over. It's really kind of scary to see, you know, some of these markets like, you know, New York coming online, and it's like, how do we fix what went wrong in California with social equity? How do we fix what went wrong with the legalization, right? And getting some of these legacy operators into the, you know, whatever you want to call it, the legal market. But a lot of the like legacy market, California cannabis, is actually sold in New York. And so every time a new state becomes legal, they lose a market to sell.
Yeah, the bridge customers, is someone, Aaron Shaw was.
Which is another push for federal legalization if it's done correctly, right? And if it's done equitably and fairly. And, you know, I hope that we can learn from like what hasn't gone well. Like, you know, I love seeing, you know, the racial diversity in New York, the interest to want to kind of, you know, like have that bodega mentality that's so big in New York, and like really keep what's true, and like can we
keep
actually
the culture?
Can we learn a lot about that from what they're doing, and focusing always on, you know, the people, the environment, like the long-term impact of what we're doing. Like, we want this industry and this planet to survive past all of our lifetimes and into our next, right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I think cannabis and plant-based medicine can help.
You are so insightful. Thank you a million times for coming on the podcast.
A lifelong learner. I love to learn, like, every day. I'm learning so much.
I just want to follow you around and hear all of your conversations.
Fly on the wall, please. Anytime.
We just do an earpiece.
Anytime.
I'm now your shadow. Well, you're invited back always.
Reach out to me on Instagram. I'm Gabby Pavelko, or goodpeople.work.
We'll link it in the show notes too.
Yes. And email me, call me, text me. Like I said, I love talking to people in this industry. I love learning, and I love sharing, you know, whether it's information or products. So yes, it's the best. But yeah, reach out to me. I encourage people, you know, to like come visit and like, you know, let's go see a facility, you know.
Yes.
Until you really get in and understand like these producers, these cultivators, like what their passion and like their driving force is, like you don't enjoy the products as much.
Yeah, I totally agree. Thank you again for bringing such insight and knowledge here today. This is going to be such a great episode.
Yeah, this is so great. Thank you so much.
I can't wait to hear it.
Yay. All right. Stay high, everyone.